Well, good evening, and thank you for coming to my virtual conscious eating / mindful eating presentation. This is one of my favorite topics to talk about, so let's get started. This is the objective of tonight's class: to create healthy habits, not restrictions. For many people, when they look to improve their eating habits, they focus on what they need to give up or avoid. This is a negative way to approach eating, and it often doesn't lead to lasting change. It more likely results in feelings of guilt or anxiety about eating certain foods or eating at certain times. So if you tend to have these negative feelings about food or eating, it may be time to let go of some of those unnecessary food rules. And this is especially true, I think, when people are trying to decrease their weight. And we are going to focus on the positive tonight. And I just wanted to, before we do that, I just wanted to discuss a few more reasons why I prefer the conscious and mindful eating approach. We know that many people that go on restrictive diets for weight loss regain the weight. If diets really worked, we all wouldn't be trying the latest one over and over again. We know the diet industry is a $72 billion industry. And as I just said, weight loss diets are often based on what you can and can't eat. And think about that for a moment. What happens when you are told you can't eat something, or you feel like you should not be eating something? Often we want it even more. And eventually we break down and we tend to overeat what we thought we should be restricting. We call this deprivation-driven eating. And with diet culture or that diet mindset, there tends to be judgment around what and how much you eat. So that's where conscious or mindful eating comes in. Mindful eating is a healthy eating strategy that has been shown to create a more positive experience and a more positive relationship with food and eating. So what is mindful eating? It's being aware of your eating and paying attention to the experience of eating. It's about practicing strategies that help you listen to your body and to develop healthy eating strategies, healthy eating habits. Okay. I think a good place to start is just listening to your body. Pay attention to the moment you start to think about food. Okay, am I hungry? Let's think about where you first experience hunger. Is it in your stomach? You might hear a growling noise. You may get that empty feeling in your stomach. You may feel irritable, lightheaded, or have a drop in energy. You may be getting a lot of thoughts about food, right? You just can't stop thinking about food. It's best not to avoid, or it's best not to ignore hunger. Think about what may happen if you ignore hunger, right? You'll likely eat more later on. Okay. I think it's important to understand that hunger is internally regulated. Our hunger signals are very important. They alert us that our bodies need fuel. If we did not get hunger signals, we would all die of starvation, right? Let's think about a baby or a young child for a moment. A baby and a young child have very strong hunger and satiety responses. As some of you may know, when a baby is hungry, they let you know. Like the baby on the left in this photo, right? The baby cries. It lets you know when they're hungry. When a baby is full, they also let you know. They usually close their mouth and turn their head, kind of like the child's on the right in that picture. But as we get older, our hunger and satiety signals may not be as strong. Other factors, such as our environment, come into effect. For example, seeing a commercial for snack food or seeing cookies on your counter, they can be triggers that make you want to eat even if you aren't hungry. So a good strategy is to check in with your hunger throughout the day. See how you're feeling. Okay. And a useful tool is the Hunger-Fullness Scale. Think of a number line from 1 to 10. Like I have on this slide. It's best to eat when you are at a 3 or a 4, When you are hungry, but you are not yet starving or feeling hangry. Those are signals that you waited too long. If you start eating when you are a 3 or a 4, you are more likely to stop eating when you are at a 6 or a 7, satisfied or pleasantly full. When people eat when they are a 1 or a 2, when you're in that starvation mode, they are more likely to eat until they are at a 9 or a 10, which is often not a good feeling, right? You may feel uncomfortably full, painfully stuffed, and often tired. Practice paying attention to your feelings of hunger and fullness, and eat when you're hungry, yet not starving, and stop when you're satisfied, but not stuffed. Takes practice. All these strategies that we're going to talk about tonight really do take some practice. Okay. Next one is, think about, do you skip meals? Skipping meals often leads to eating more at your next meal or later in the day, or grabbing snacks that are not always the best choices, such as going to a vending machine or drive-through. Nourish your body by planning and eating at regular times. And we'll talk more about this a little bit later. Okay. Also start to pay attention to how quickly you eat. We usually eat quickly when we are very hungry or in a hurry. And when we eat quickly, we often eat larger portions. So let's talk about why it's so easy to eat more than we need. Your stomach really is not very big when it's empty. I usually say it's about the size of your fist when it's empty. It does stretch so it can hold more food, but keep in mind that it takes about 20 minutes for your stomach to tell your brain that you're full. And 20 minutes is a long time. It's easy to eat more than your body needs, especially when we eat quickly. So be patient, and you will feel satisfied without feeling stuffed and uncomfortable later. We need to feel satisfied in our, we need to be satisfied both in our stomach, but also in our brain. And eating slowly can really help with that. Okay, next one. Okay, take the time to really enjoy your food. To truly do this, it's best not to do other activities while eating. It's best to turn off the TV, put down your phone, give all your attention to your meal and the experience of eating. It will help you to be more in touch with how much you've eaten and prevent you from eating past the point at which your hunger, is satisfied. But if this is difficult for you because you do not like to eat alone or in total silence, start by taking a few mindful bites at the beginning of the meal. Research has shown that the first bite or sip of a tasty food or beverage is actually the most rewarding. And every bite or sip after that gives us a little less pleasure. So really pay attention to those first few bites, especially just to get started. Start your meal by looking at the food, smelling the food. While eating, take note of the textures of your food, and of course, taste the food. The goal really is to find joy in eating. Mindful eating is an experience, right, not a race. I actually think it's a good idea to get in the practice of taking a few mindful breaths before you start eating. It can be a good habit to get you into that state of mindfulness and also help you to relax and to really enjoy your meal. So even just a few really nice deep breaths, it just kind of gets you in that, mood of being mindful for your meal. Some tips to help you to slow down include putting your fork down between bites. If there's food in your mouth, there shouldn't be food on your fork. Wait until you finish chewing and swallowing whatever it is in your mouth before you begin to compose the next forkful. Okay, this simple habit can actually be game-changing. So I really would love you to practice that one. Just after you take a mouthful, put the fork down. Again, don't pick it up until you swallow what's in your mouth. Chew your food well. This also helps to slow you down, but it also is better for digestion. Take sips of water between bites. If you're eating with others, have pleasant conversation between bites. While you're eating, also remind yourself that your taste buds are only on your tongue, right? There are no taste buds in your stomach. So take your time and really enjoy the food. Savor the flavor. You know, is it bitter? Is it sweet? Is it salty? Is it sour? Is it more than one? Really notice, the flavor of what you're eating. And pay attention to how you're feeling. You want to stop eating when you are comfortably full, or even before you feel full, because remember, it's that 20 minutes that your stomach is behind your brain. This way you will not feel overly stuffed afterward. Okay, use smaller plates. If you're trying to eat smaller portions, you may want to switch to using smaller plates. Plate sizes have actually gotten larger over the years, and it's easy to fill up our large plates with more food than we actually need to feel satisfied and comfortable. And visually, it just appears like more food when it's on a smaller plate. So it may be a helpful strategy if reducing portions is one of your goals, right? It just seems like more food on the plate on the right because it's smaller. There's not as much empty space. Try drinking a glass of water before your meal while you are getting the meal ready. It helps fill the space in your stomach so you get that feeling of fullness more when you should rather than when it's too late. And the way it actually works is your stomach stretches as you drink or eat. And when it stretches to a certain point, it sends a signal to your brain that you are full. So drinking a little water before the meal will just start that stretching process so you'll get that signal when you should rather than when it's too late. Another strategy is to serve the food from the kitchen rather than putting all the prepared food on the table. Leave the pots and serving dishes on the kitchen counter, excuse me, or stovetop. If you put all the food on the table where you're eating, which is known as family style, it's just too easy to reach over, right, and grab a second helping. If you leave the food in the kitchen, you'll have to think, do I really want to get up and get another helping, or am I feeling full? Maybe if I drink some more water, and see how I'm feeling at that point. If you like, feel free to put the non-starchy vegetables or salad on the table. Did you know that it's okay to leave food on your plate? Were you brought up that way? I understand why this is so hard for people. We hate to waste food. However, I read something once that really had an impact on me. It said, if you eat everything on your plate just because you don't want to throw it away, it's like you're using your body as a garbage can. Okay. Part of mindful eating is knowing when you've had enough to eat. Okay. Of course, a great alternative would be to pack it up and save it for another meal, right? I'm not advocating, wasting food. I just want you to pay attention to your body and what your body needs. But keep this in mind at restaurants or when you're getting takeout meals. You can often get 2 meals out of a serving. Sometimes you can even get more than 2. I picked this picture because oftentimes, right, especially at Italian restaurants, there can often be a really large portion. And so again, the main point is, listen to your body. When you feel satisfied, you can stop eating. Think about how you will feel if you eat beyond that point. And with practice and self-care, you're going to learn to eat the amount that's best for you. And another positive of this, I think, is you're saving money and you don't have to prepare another meal. You get to enjoy it again. I love leftovers. I love it. You get more bang for your buck and you spread it out. And if there's, say whatever's left over isn't enough quite for a meal, you can always supplement it with, a salad, some more vegetables or something else from home, or have it for lunch, sandwich. So we talked about how it is important to eat when you are hungry, but sometimes people eat when they're not hungry. Let's think about some of those reasons why we may eat when we're not really hungry. Think about, do you eat when you're bored, out of habit? Someone else is eating, maybe to stay awake while watching a TV show? How about, do you comfort yourself with food? Do you eat when you are stressed, anxious, lonely, depressed? We really need to explore the reasons why we are eating when we're not hungry. A good way to do this is to keep a food emotion journal Write down everything you eat and drink for 3 to 5 days and include your emotions while you're eating. Then assess what you find. Because again, we really do need to figure out the why in order to understand what is happening and to come up with alternative strategies to eating when you're not hungry. And please keep in mind, the occasional emotional eating episode is normal. We all do it sometimes, right? However, it can be a problem if it's the only tool in your coping toolbox. Emotional eating on a regular basis, can affect your health. So it's important to address the emotions that you are dealing with and find healthy coping strategies. Okay, so, discuss it with a healthcare professional and see if there's any other things that you need to focus on. Think about other activities you can do when you're not hungry instead of eating. I think planning ahead is the key. Keep a list even of activities or a bag of items that you can reach for when you're not really hungry, but you're bored or stressed. You might do a relaxation technique like deep breathing, yoga, chair yoga, meditating, maybe read a book, keep a book nearby that you can grab that when you're feeling those emotions. Music, something that puts you in a good mood. Maybe do a puzzle, a hobby, craft, some sort of project, self-care activity, maybe take a bath, face mask, polish your nails, go for a walk, some sort of physical activity, lift some hand weights. So to sum up your hunger versus non-hunger eating, practice asking yourself these 3 questions. When thinking about food, number 1, ask, am I hungry? If yes, then eat. 2, if you're not hungry, right, ask yourself, what am I feeling? Again, boredom, anxiety, sadness, etc. And then ask, how else can I manage this feeling? Okay. And if you answer number 1, that you're not hungry, reassure yourself. I think this is important too. Reassure yourself that you will eat when you are hungry. But right now, I'm not hungry. So what can I do instead to manage my feelings? Right? Reassure yourself that when you're hungry, you will eat. Okay. And this was just another list of just some other strategies that you can try to learn some practical or practice some healthy coping skills. Yoga, again, meditating. I think I read most of these. Deep breathing, physical activity, find a hobby, get enough rest. I think is important. Writing in a journal, sometimes just writing your feelings in a journal, talking to a friend, talking to a therapist, participating in faith-based activities, joining a support group. Think of just other healthy coping strategies. Okay. I wanted to just switch gears a little bit and talk about being mindful of our food choices. The goal is to aim to include more foods that have a positive impact on your health. I always say it's best to focus on what to add rather than what to take away. Okay. Some other helpful mantras that you might want to recite to yourself is nutrition by addition, not restriction. Be a pencil, not an eraser. Okay, focus on, again, the positive. Nutrition by addition, yep, not restriction. Okay. When you're putting a meal together, ask yourself, what can I add to this to make it more balanced, to give it some more nutrition, to make it more satisfying? Maybe that means adding a vegetable, making sure you're adding enough protein or even a carb to the meal. What can I add? Think about more flavor, maybe some nuts. Focusing on what you can add and not what you were trying to take away can really, I think, make all the difference in a healthy eating journey. So our goal is often to eat a wide variety of foods to provide our body with its nutritional needs. So this includes protein, whole grains, vegetables, fruits, beans, nuts, and healthy fats. But keep in mind, there are no good or bad foods. There are no foods that are going to ruin your health if you eat them occasionally. Okay, so I always say it's not about being perfect when it comes to eating. I really do think all foods can fit, and you're more likely to stay and overall eat a healthy overall diet if you do stick with what you can add rather than what to avoid. So include protein foods such as poultry, chicken, turkey, fish, seafood, lean fresh pork, lean beef, eggs, plant-based protein like tofu, soy, nuts. One of the benefits of protein is that it keeps you feeling full longer, which will make it easier to stick to your mindful eating strategies. Choose whole grains whenever possible, such as quinoa, brown rice, oats, whole grain breads and cereals. You know, we want to aim to try to eat more whole foods and less processed foods. That doesn't mean you can't eat any processed foods, but foods that are less processed tend to have more fiber, which also keeps us feeling full longer. And they tend to have other benefits for our gastrointestinal system, as well as lowering our blood cholesterol levels. Include beans and legumes often. They contain soluble fiber and protein, as well as other important nutrients. So this would include all beans, lentils, soybeans. You can add them to soup, salad, rice, tacos, chili. Yeah, I'd really try to aim to add them several times a week if you can. Oops. Include a variety of vegetables, right? A great way to add color and nutrition to your plate. Include salads, you can add raw vegetables. I love roasted vegetables, sauteed vegetables, steamed vegetables, any way you like them. You may even try to make vegetables the star of the meal rather than as a side dish or an afterthought. Sometimes a positive way to include more vegetables. And fruits too. If you currently only occasionally eat fruit, you may start by making a goal of including 1 serving per day. And then you might try to up it to 2 servings a day. Make a commitment to include a serving of fruit at breakfast or as part of a snack. And I always say they go great with nuts, which was my next slide. It's nuts and seeds. A small handful makes a great snack. And some heart healthy nuts include pecans, almonds, walnuts, but really most nuts provide our body with important nutrients. Aim for healthy liquid oils rather than solid fats whenever possible, such as olive oil, avocado, canola oil are all great choices. And beverages. Drink mostly water, seltzer water, which comes in many different flavors, tea, coffee, reduced fat milk or plant-based milks. Try not to overdo added sweeteners, you know, whether it's regular sugar or even the sugar substitutes, you know, a small amount as needed for taste, but yeah, it's good just not to overdo those. I always say keep nutrition simple. And I just think the plate method is a great visual to helping us when we're planning meals and putting food on our plate. Okay, so looking at the slide, notice that half the plate is filled with the non-starchy vegetables. A quarter of the plate is where we put the whole grains or starchy foods, also known as our carbohydrate foods, which remember, those are the foods that really give our body energy. And a quarter of the plate is the protein. I think this is a good overall model to try to stick with. Again, not every meal might be exactly like this, and that's okay too. But I think this is just a good plan when I'm planning meals and when I'm putting food on the plate to try to follow these guidelines. And here's just some more examples of how to use the plate method. I just think it's nice to see how you can really put together lots of different meals. And you could see that all of them contain some protein, some carbs, and lots of vegetables. There were some other examples using the plate method, right? Nothing wrong with having pizza. It's just sometimes when we have pizza, I usually use pizza even as the example because it only takes a couple of minutes to eat a slice of pizza. So it's very easy to say, oh, I'm still hungry, I want another slice, you know, and then you still are hungry. It's easy to eat more slices, but maybe pair it with a nice high fiber, colorful salad. And the big thing nowadays are bowls. And I found that I really enjoy making bowls. I often do it a lot with leftovers, but sometimes even for just the main meal. So this was just, I think, a nice little formula for making a balanced bowl. Choose a protein such as chicken, fish, tofu, or beans. Add a handful of greens or other vegetables. Add a whole grain, maybe quinoa, brown rice, leftover pasta. Add additional flavor with nuts, fruit, oil, vinegar, lemon, some sort of, dressing. And it really just kind of brings all those flavors together to make another meal. It's a great way, I think, to use leftovers and to use up what's in your fridge. It's great for lunch to pack up, especially if you're going to work or if you're working from home as well. And I didn't want to leave out breakfast. So I pulled some breakfast ideas from another presentation just to give you some, quick breakfast inspiration. The combo of protein with whole grains will keep your blood sugar from spiking, will also keep your energy up through the morning. Okay, better than, the typical pastries, muffins, donuts, things that don't last long and then you're off looking for food again. People often, I think, skip breakfast because they're in a rush in the morning. So if you keep it simple with some of these breakfast ideas, and keep in mind that when many people skip breakfast or other meals during the day, they tend to eat more in the evening. So think about if that does happen to you. You don't have to eat your first meal as soon as you get up. However, when you start to feel hungry, I think it's important to have something to eat. I usually say within 2 to 3 hours, we should have something to eat. And I think the key is really to, have some protein with your breakfast too. So you do feel a little longer. I think eggs are great. I like to make some hard-boiled eggs on the weekend so they're quick and easy to pull out during the week. Peanut butter on English muffins or whole grain bread, cereal like oatmeal with some nuts. Here were some other examples, some using the bowl concept, some breakfast bowls, because I find too, it's a great way for me to include some fruits. If I take berries and I put some Greek yogurt on top, or even cottage cheese with fruit and some nuts, and overnight oats I find is also very convenient to make a few up during the weekends and keep them in the fridge. So it's something I can switch off during the week. And then you could always put extra toppings on in the morning, fruits, again, nuts, peanut butter, lots of different choices. And snacks can be very helpful, right, for getting us from one meal to the next so that we don't get overly hungry between meals. Remember, again, to focus on what you can add, such as fruits, vegetables, nuts, and yogurt, so you can boost the overall quality of the day. The downside of snacks is we often eat them with less intention than a regular meal, right? We often just grab snacks that are quick and easy in the moment of hunger. And often when we're on the go, and we eat them while we're distracted, right? Such as working, driving, or watching TV. So it's easy sometimes to grab a bag of chips and before you know it, it's gone, or cookies, which are fine in, occasionally or in small quantities. So some snack foods that combine a carb with a protein food, you might want to give a try too, such as a small handful of nuts and fruit, or an apple with a cheese stick, or a banana and peanut butter, or Greek yogurt and berries, or whole grain crackers and cheese, tortilla chips, vegetables, and hummus. These are just some ideas, that might be choices for snacks, especially to bring with you so you have something. I really think that's the key, is to plan and to pack snacks. Yeah, keep in mind that snacks are meant to be smaller than meals. A small amount will keep you satisfied for a couple of hours, especially if you include some protein. And try putting your snacks in small containers or bags. Avoid sitting down with a whole bag or box. It's just too easy when it's in front of you to keep going. But I always bring snacks with me really wherever I go, because you never know when you might get hungry. And that way you have it. It's that kind of reassurance that when I'm hungry, I have something to eat. Okay. Now, some people do not feel that they have control around food. So if you are someone who does not feel in control around food, there's likely one of these things going on. So you might want to just think if any of these are true for you. Think about, is your meal timing strategy off? For example, do you skip meals? Do you go a long time between meals? Are you eating enough protein and fiber at meals? Are you desperately trying to eat less or smaller portions? These can all cause you to kind of lose control when you finally eat, and that can cause you to overeat. So some strategies to help you feel more in control around food. I really believe that in order to put mindful eating principles in place, you need to first prioritize your eating regularly. If you're not properly fueling your body, it will be very hard to eat mindfully. Starvation mode takes over and you will not care what you eat. So to feel more in control around food, plan to eat regular meals. Again, that means breakfast, lunch, and dinner, snacks in between if needed. I think a good place to start is to check in with yourself every 3 hours. And again, just then ask yourself, am I hungry? Am I getting there? Do I have a plan for my next meal or snack? Most people feel best when they eat every 3 to 4 hours, but see what works best for you. Everyone is different. Everyone's individual. Generally, it's not best to bank your calories. If you've heard that expression before, for example, eating less during the day to be able to eat more at dinner or when going to a restaurant or another events, for example, like a wedding. Banking calories just tends to lead to becoming out of control and overeating. It's best to eat normally leading up to the event and to stay in touch with your body cues as much as you can during the event. Okay. And I feel that this is so important. Be mindful of the way you treat yourself. Whenever we are trying to make changes in our habits, it's very important to be kind to yourself. Okay. Choose one goal at a time. Focus on realistic and sustainable changes. And remember that making changes takes practice, right? It doesn't happen overnight. All these things you're going to have to practice and remind yourself. And some days are going to go better than others. And those days, pat yourself in the back and say, oh, yeah, this is great. But there's always going to be those days that aren't going to go as you had planned. And that's okay. You just start again the next meal. I think that's really the key, is to speak to yourself nicely and with compassion. That little voice in your head, right? It can sometimes be pretty mean. If we always focus on what we're doing wrong, you will likely get frustrated and say, forget the whole thing. I'm eating whatever I want, whatever happens to me, right? We tend to make healthier choices when it comes from a place of self-care and love. So I think really important to be kind to yourself. And it's definitely not about being perfect. Remember that too. Again, if you have a bad day or a meal that didn't go away, you always have the next meal, to try to improve on. So I really wanted to end the same way we started, with our objective is to create and practice healthy eating habits rather than focusing on restrictions. And I hope you will continue to focus on the positive. And we still have just a few more days left of National Nutrition Month, but March is National Nutrition Month. And so I especially like to share information about nutrition during this month. So I'm glad we're ending off on a positive, mindful eating experience. So that's the material that I have prepared for you today. So I would love if anyone has any questions, concerns, strategies, anything that's worked for them in the past, anything you'd like to share or would like me to discuss, feel free to unmute yourself and ask.
Thank you, Mindy. And you can also put anything in the chat box. And I just want to remind everyone that in the chat box, I have put the link to do the survey. We value what you say so we can plan for future events. So if anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask Mindy.
No questions? So for those that want any or need any individual nutrition counseling, that's what I do when I'm not doing these talks. So that you would just need a referral from your physician and you would schedule through the scheduling office. That's really medical nutrition counseling. Oh, wait, someone put in something. What are your thoughts about intermittent fasting? Yeah. So I know that for some people, they feel that it works and it's helpful for them. And I understand why. I think sometimes when people, eat for a longer, many hours of the day, they might be consuming, excess calories. I think that it especially works when people cut back the window in the evening time, by just cutting off. Like say you're someone that eats most of your food and your calories from 6 until you go to bed at 11 o'clock. By saying I'm cutting off at 8, it might really prevent that excess eating in the evening. But I also, on the other hand, think when people do skip meals or not eat enough during the day, those are the people that are more likely to eat at night. And I really think it's best to spread the food out throughout the day. That really, I think, is the best way to fuel ourselves, especially if you do have issues like, diabetes or pre-diabetes, but even weight management. I personally am not a long range fan of that. I think it's probably for most people something that ends up being temporary. But, I always say if it's a 12-hour window and you're just cutting off some of that excess at night, or, depending on what works for you, and if it's not working, then you gradually, increase your time a little bit too and see how that goes. Good question. Have you heard of food combining? I mean, really the only type of food combining that I like to talk about is I do think it's good to combine protein with carbs. I just think that when we eat carbs, picture if you had like a bag of pretzels and you ate a large amount of pretzels, they're just so quickly digested. So a few things happen. For one thing, blood sugars tend to spike. And this could be with any high carb food, or you're going to get hungry very soon later. It doesn't stay with us long. So another, hour or two later, you're hungry again. So I really think most people aren't probably prioritizing their protein or getting enough protein with their meals and snacks. And even adding just a little bit of protein just keeps you feeling full a little longer. But other than that, I don't know of really any particular food combining, if there's any research or evidence that shows that that's beneficial. If you have anything more specific you want to add to that, feel free.
I have a question.
Sure.
I read very recently that combining tomatoes and cucumbers is not good because they like neutralize each other. I don't know, never heard about this. We usually eat salads, tomatoes,
Right.
cucumbers, and onions. It's regular, but
Yeah. Where did you hear that?
I read it somewhere on YouTube.
Yes, yeah. And there's so much information, there's so much misinformation. It's hard sometimes, right, to know what we can believe and what we shouldn't believe. And I think that's what leads to many people's problems. We get to the point where we don't even know what to eat anymore, right? Because there's always someone saying that something isn't, good for us. And that's where I really think that it is the balance. And that's why I always like to focus on the positive, like the food groups and food choices that I discuss. Focus on adding more of those. And I think when you add more of those to both your meals and your snacks, we tend to eat a little less of the things maybe that might not be as nutritious. But I've never heard that before. Cucumbers and tomatoes. I can't imagine any reason why that would be a negative. And, sometimes too, I don't know, I find all kinds of things show up on my social media, news feeds and stuff, and they try to get you, like, don't eat this. There was one recently that was everywhere. Don't eat, why you should never eat eggs. And, I think the end, I wouldn't stay to watch it, but comments from people said that it was just a catch to get you in, they try to get you scared, a lot of fear mongering going on with food. So try not to be trapped by that. I don't think there's any vegetable that I would say you shouldn't eat. There's no fruit that I would say you shouldn't eat. Might it be helpful for some people to eat a piece of fruit with some protein, especially if they want to keep their blood sugars a little more stable, keep them feeling full longer? Yeah, that'd probably be a great combination. But, the food, we chew it, we swallow it, it goes to our stomach, it's broken down, it's digested, there's acids, there's enzymes, all different things, all the food is combined. I wouldn't worry about combining, certain.
Another question, sorry.
Sure.
About cantaloupes, I read again somewhere that combining cantaloupes with the food is not good. You have to eat it between. Is it true or not?
I would have to say no. I mean, unless I read some really good research for that. But yeah, I don't know. I would be careful, whatever that YouTube, what you're watching. I think it's going to make you fearful to eat. No, I can't imagine that. Cantaloupe is wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Okay, good question. Does drinking water, etc., with a meal reduce digestive enzymes? That's one that's been circulating for a long time. I remember looking that up years ago, and I remember actually I just listened to a program that talked about it again. Actually, no, it does not. It does not. You can drink while you're eating. I really think that that might have started by parents of kids. Well, they used to always tell them not to drink while they ate. I think a combination of things. I think they were worried that they were going to fill up on liquids and then not be able to eat their food, their meal. Or sometimes I've heard that too, that I've heard, or the one that I usually hear is that it reduces the acidity of your stomach, which can interfere with digestion. But no, that's not true. Our bodies are pretty amazing when you really think about it, and your body will just put out, more enzymes or more, acid to help with digestion. So I wouldn't worry about that either.
Another question.
The only people, though, I do say that some people that tend to have a lot of reflux, sometimes it's best for them not to drink too much with a meal. Sometimes just having too much of the liquid, in the stomach with the meal might cause more reflux. So that's the only group of people that I'll say sometimes to not drink too much with a meal.
What about another question?
Mhm.
I read again somewhere, I don't remember where, that drinking cold water with the food is not good, because it's the fat gets like hard or whatever. I don't know how to express it. It's
Right.
always better to drink warm or hot water.
Yeah. It really is another myth. Yeah. No, it doesn't.
It's not true.
It's not true. No. And it just, by the time it gets, down to your stomach, it very quickly, our bodies regulate and brings it up to the right temperature. Yeah. Nope, that couldn't happen either. Yeah, I know. I did hear once too, well, recently, and this was from a good source, that drinking cold water requires your body just a little bit more calories. Calories is actually what burns, to make energy. So you might burn just a little more calories, but even that, it was completely negligible, to drinking any other temperature water. Like it wouldn't be a good way to lose weight to drink colder water. It was so negligible, even though there might be a slight difference. Yeah, but no, drink it any way you like it. You can drink it cold. Yeah. No, this is great, Rita. You're helping me to kibosh all those little myths and things that are out there. I appreciate that.
I cannot tell you, all details, but it sounded very, very convincing. I can tell.
And they do. Now I have one other question for you, because this is what I was taught early on, and I still believe it, a way to, for misinformation, or to spot, we learned it is to spot a quack, is if they're selling you something, like at the end of these videos, are they trying to sell you something?
No.
A book,
Not
a
the
product?
case. No, nothing. No, nothing.
Okay. But
Just advice. Just
Okay.
advice, yes. And I don't remember, but they explains that cucumbers have something, and tomatoes have something, and they neutralize each other. So it will not give you like that nutrition that you will get if you eat them separately.
Right. Yeah, try to follow people that have credentials, especially like a registered dietitian, nutritionist, someone that really practices evidence-based, nutrition. Yeah, try not to get too bogged down on all.
No, I just ignore because I like salads, tomatoes, and cucumbers.
Exactly. So enjoy it. I don't want you to eat it and then feel like you're doing something wrong.
No.
Good. Eat it and enjoy it. That's the key. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Everyone has certain issues or tolerances. If you have trouble digesting it, or you notice, pain or discomfort, then you want to figure out, if you have any intolerances. But if not, I would enjoy them. Anyone else? Oh, wait. Oh, nightshades. Yeah. And what they used to talk, someone said, what are nightshades? And they are a group of certain foods. And I don't know if I can even say them but there was some potatoes and eggplant and different things that they thought might cause some issues. Arthritis was the one they're usually related to. I think a lot of those, though, they really don't believe it is necessarily something to worry about. Again, with food, I always say it's elimination, because I think some people said they felt better when they avoided it. If you want to test it out and avoid it and see if symptoms go away, then, try it and then retest back. I don't want people to avoid foods if it's not something that really is a problem for them. I want you to have the, most varied food plans as possible.